Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Indah Trihandayani, student number A1B219018. Today I will complete my assignment for Oracy, and in here I will explain what we have said in academic discussion. The first is we third person. The purpose of our discussion is blah blah blah. Let's discuss blah blah blah. If we talk about blah blah blah, it seems necessary to discuss blah 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 and decide which is the most and the least. Let me start with blah blah blah. Let's begin with blah blah blah. Let's discuss. First, we need to blah blah blah. Who would like to begin? Can you explain point a little more clearly? We can see what other people think about this. Who has not had chance to speak yet? Is there analyst comment on this point before we move on the next one? So we have two opposing arguments here. On the one hand, blah blah blah, and on the other hand, in other words, most of us think that blah blah blah. Can we draw any conclusion for what have been saying? And that's it for if we chairperson. And next I will explain if we everyone or participant to giving your opinion. I think that in my view or in my opinion, as far as I can see or I'm concerned, surely the main reason for my opinion is blah blah blah. To my mind, blah blah blah. In fact, blah blah blah. To the best of my knowledge, blah blah blah. The way I see it, blah blah blah. If you ask me, blah blah blah, I'm not sure if blah 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 it is said or believe or known and that. And it is obvious that, and it seems to me the date blah blah blah. I have the or feeling date. Well, I don't say you can take it from the date. If you ask me, blah blah blah, it seemed to me that blah blah blah. I think or I feel or I reckon or I believe blah blah blah. If you want my opinion, blah blah blah. First of all, or start with, I'd like to point out blah blah blah. There can be no doubt that blah blah blah. Nobody will then date blah blah blah. Everyone know blah blah blah. Let's get this clear. First, blah blah blah. The point I'm trying to make is blah blah blah, and I am absolutely confident that blah blah blah. Unless the way I look at or I see it is this blah blah blah. And next, I will explain about if we giving an explanation. Look, it is like this. The reason for this is blah blah blah. Just let me explain. Blah blah blah. Well, the thing is blah blah blah. What I mean is blah blah blah. The main problem is blah blah blah. Well, the reason is blah blah blah. And last, above all, we must keep in mind that blah blah blah. Next, explanation about Blessing's arguments. First, on the one hand, blah blah blah, and on the other hand, blah blah blah. Some people say that blah blah blah. Others believe that blah blah blah. It is said that blah blah blah. However, blah blah blah. Next is asking question about someone else's opinion or explanation. Could you tell me blah blah blah? What's your opinion about blah blah blah? How do you feel about blah blah blah? Next is asking questions about someone else's opinion for explanation. Could you tell me blah blah blah? What's your opinion about blah blah blah? How do you feel about blah blah blah? What do you think about or of? Do you think or feel blah blah blah? May I ask you blah blah blah? Do you mean that blah blah blah? Do you agree blah blah blah? Do you share my point of view? What do you mean when you say blah blah blah? How do you feel? How do you tell about blah blah blah? How do you think about or how do you think about of blah blah blah? Do you think or do you feel? Do you agree? Do you share my point of view? And what do you mean when you say blah blah blah? What do you mean by that? I don't fully understand. Can you give some examples? Could you explain to me? Just tell me the reason why. I just don't see why or I just don't see what or how. Do you share my point of view? What do you mean when you say? What do you mean by that? I don't fully understand. Can you give example? Could you explain to me? Just tell me the reason why. I just don't see why what you. What how? I didn't quite get that. Could someone please tell me? I don't really understand. Are you saying that? I beg your pardon. Next is agreeing and disagreeing. I can't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. That's true or that's right. Exactly or precisely or right or strongly or definitely. I think so. I think so too. That's just my feeling or my opinion, and that's a very good or important point. Yes, of course. Or yes, definitely, or yes, absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly what I mean or say. I agree because blah blah blah. I strongly agree with you. I couldn't agree more. That seems very logical to me. I share your point of view. So do I, or so am I. I am in a low favorite of what you've been saying. I can see your point, but blah blah blah. That's a very good point, but blah blah blah. Yes, perhaps, but blah blah blah. Yes, but on the other hand, blah blah blah. I agree up to a certain point, but blah blah blah. Maybe I suppose so. I don't think it's as simple as that. You might be right there. Yes, possible too. Yes, up to a point. Yes, in a way. Yes, in a way. Well, it depends. I see what you mean, but I think that's not the whole story. Yes, but there's also another aspect to consider. I'm afraid I can't agree because blah blah blah. I disagree with you. I'm afraid. I don't think you are right. I don't want to agree with you, but blah blah blah. I don't agree with you. I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you. Are you seriously? Are you seriously suggesting date? No, I really can't agree. I'm afraid. I'm not so certain or also if that's true or correct. I'm so sorry. I can't agree. I'm not confident that. Well, I have my doubt about that. You don't really mean that, do you? I don't think so. And the next about summing up. To sum up, to conclude, to summarize, blah blah blah, taking everything into consideration, blah blah blah, I can suggest the following order. Do you agree? I believe the most important is, and the least significant is. We have agreed to following order, blah blah blah. We have decided that number 1 is, number 2 is, blah blah blah, and number 3 is. Okay, I think that's it for you can use it in academic discussion. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.